I am the Executive Vice President for Sales and Marketing here at Forelli. We're really excited you guys are joining us this morning. And we know that everyone is definitely trying to navigate these new and changing times. And we want to, at Forelli, we want to be able to just try and help the community and be sure that we are playing our part and being good partners to all of higher education. And with that, we are going to be having this webinar today. Both Kelly Sinacola and Carol Thomas are going to be sharing some of the things to look for when deciding on grade mode changes at your institution. So a couple of house rules, if you will. We would like to keep everyone on mute during the session, if you could. We will obviously be taking questions. We'd like to, first, if you want to ask a question during a certain point, please write it in the chat room window. You can find the option for chat room at the bottom. There should be a little chat bubble, and you can click right there, and it'll go chat to everyone. Okay, so just want to make sure of that. We'll definitely follow up or make sure that we are answering that question towards the end. We will open it up for questions at the end if you want to save it there. Additionally, we will be recording this session and sending out a link. So you can feel free to take notes, but please know that you will have this to reference back to later with any additional questions. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and Carol.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to join in our webinar. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kelly Sinacola. I'm the Vice President over, in part, the colleague practice here at Forelli. So, and
also the birthday. Just want to make sure everyone knows who is now joined.
Just so everyone knows.
Today is Kelly's birthday, so we're very excited. Happy birthday, Kelly. Sorry, just had to jump in.
Thank you, Stephen. Hopefully all of the cake emojis are calorie free. So need that during the pandemic for sure. So looking forward to sharing some information with you. I'd also like to pass the torch to Carol Thomas to introduce herself.
And good morning, everyone. I'm relatively new to Forelli, so there's a lot of new names on the webinar list that I look forward to becoming familiar with. I'm a vice president in part over the Ellucian Banner Professional Services, and I look forward to talking with you about some of the banner solutions today. So the first thing we'd like to do is ask you a question. We'd like to ask you, what ERP do you use? We know that many of you are engaged with Banner and Colleague, but we also know some folks may be joining us with other systems, and we just wanted to get a sense of that. So you should see a pop up in front of you right now, and I see we're getting Colleague and Banner and PeopleSoft responses. We'll leave this running for just a couple minutes. We've got right now about 50 people who've responded, so we'll give it a couple more minutes or a couple more really seconds, I think, to respond. Okay, so currently 79% of the audience is working with Colleague, and 17% audience with Banner, 4% with PeopleSoft, and 2% with other. So I think we've given this about, yeah, I think we're good, Kelly. So the overwhelming majority is Colleague, so you're going to hear a lot about that. We will talk about Banner specifically, and we're happy to follow others on any questions that we're not able to answer through this. So great.
Okay, so today we're talking about the mid-semester changes to grading options that are happening. A lot of schools are approaching this decision due to the COVID-19 crisis. And with all of the changes that are happening on campus, in students' lives and faculty lives, everyone is starting to look at what does it look like to change these grading options midstream through our semesters. So right now, this is impacting all types of schools, where some of the issues that we deal with focus primarily on community colleges or private institutions. This is currently impacting the entire country, so all of our school types that we serve are affected.
And we wanted to reiterate for just a moment why this is happening. And I'm sure you're aware at your institutions of the drivers for this change. We know that it's related primarily to mid-semester adjustments to course delivery, as well as all the ongoing changes and challenges that students and faculty and staff as well have been experiencing as a result of the disruption of stay-at-home orders, of quarantine, and all the other activities. But primarily for many students, it's the switch from the residential course delivery to online course delivery, which is a primary driver. We know that because of all these changes, there's been possible reductions in accessibility to academic services that students rely upon. And students and their families and all of us really are undergoing a lot of stress. And so to mitigate some of that stress and remove some of those grading pressures is certainly a compassionate option for many schools. And so we've taken a look both among our client base and in our conversations with others around the country at sort of what the options are for schools. And really there are many options in terms of making an adjustment in the grading scheme. The most common adjustment is to move from a letter or number grade to a pass-fail option for students. Although, as we said, many options are available. Doing this, as you are well aware, has both policy and practice implications that have potentially long-term impacts. There are also systems implications, and systems corrections or adjustments can be made both for the short run, and by that I mean a specific term or semester, as well as for the longer run, if necessary. And so those are the kinds of things that are really part of this consideration when we talk about changing the grading mode.
And so what's the scope of this change? Different schools that we're talking to have adapted different ways of embracing this scope. So in some, it's an entire institution pushing this down towards all of the departments in the institution. For some, single colleges within an institution are embracing this change. Then with some, just a single department within a college or institution are deciding to make this change to pass-fail. Then what we've seen with some of our institutions is individual faculty are given the option of making a switch based on their modality or their delivery style. And then another option is giving the student the option. And that is generally done to mitigate the stress of the student or changing because of the modality and the delivery of that class.
So what we'd like to know from you is where your institution falls within this decision-making process. And to reiterate what Kelly just talked about, is your entire institution changing policy? Are colleges or departments changing policy? Is it a faculty choice for a particular section or sections, or are students getting to make the choice on a case-by-case basis? From what I'm seeing right now, the overwhelming majority are student choice, which is what we have been seeing as well, but obviously that can be embraced in an entire institution changing policy as well.
The most underwhelming choice so far is the individual faculty choice.
And that's interesting because one of the schools that I've been working with, that's what they decided to do, was to allow the faculty to choose to move an entire section grading mode. So that's why it's been on my mind.
Okay, I'm going to shut off polling.
And some I'm seeing in the chat have a combination. And that doesn't surprise me either. That's hard to capture here, but the combination was 3 and 5, so departments and faculty. So yeah, terrific. Well, that's very interesting results. And I know for the banner example, I'm going to talk about it from the focus of how students can make that choice. So we're looking forward to that. Another comment that's coming in is we are moving for the entire institution, but only based on a grade of C. Some saying we're doing things depending on the course. So obviously lots of options and lots of things to consider through. Thank you for doing that.
And because of those many options of scope, and then the ones that are being highlighted in the chat window right now, I still see it lighting up, there's also a number of options for the timing of this change. I know in a lot of the examples where the student has the option to opt in, it's happening after the letter grade is assigned. And so they're able to see what they would have earned in the regular grade mode, and then given the option of changing it after they're able to see what they would have earned in that course. This is also happening at institutions with or without choice. So are they getting pushed down from an institution change or a department change, as we're seeing in the chat? Or are they being given the option to change that down the road? Now, there are many immediate implications of these changes. And as we know, we all work with ERPs, everybody that's on this webinar, and there's wide stream and broad effects to anything that we change, and a lot of downstream effects that we may not realize. So satisfactory academic progress rules and financial aid configuration are one major impact that we may not think about when we're making this change in the registrar's office. A number of schools are implementing transcript notes. So the ability to denote on the transcript that this is a very unusual situation that we're in right now, and make sure that everybody in the future can see that on the transcript. Changing the grade mode can have impacts on athletic eligibility through their athletic organizations, as well as scholarship eligibility. So in some cases, if you fall below a certain GPA or fall below a certain grade, you get your scholarship immediately revoked. There's also possible implications on VA benefits. And so that's important to work with your veteran staff on. Students that are currently on probation or suspension may be using this semester to bring up their grades so they can get out of that status. And a pass-fail wouldn't have an impact on their GPA to allow them to do that. There's also impacts on any honors that you're giving to your students, because those are generally GPA based and they wouldn't fall into a pass-fail.
And yes, I'm noticing in the chat that SAP is affected. That's what we had hoped to encompass that in the first bullet point on the prior slide, but we certainly get that. So it's a really important consideration. Along with that are future implications of this change. So for example, on repeat policies or retake policies, the transferability of credits from your institution in a pass-fail model if the student chooses to make a transfer move. Potentially impacts or implications on rules for program requirements and certainly GPA calculations, both as they relate to scholarships as well as to graduate school or professional school applications for your undergraduate students. So all things to be aware of. I mean, I think as an industry, we're going to be aware that this semester was certainly unusual, but we don't want to take these implications lightly either.
So we wanted to give you some specifics in the colleague world and in the banner world to focus on as you're evaluating this change at your institutions. So I wanted to put specific colleague mnemonics. If you aren't a colleague person, then these are just the language and the vocab that we live in on a day-to-day basis. If you are looking at editing your grade scheme, so you can go two ways with this. You can choose to add a separate grade scheme, which has impacts directly on your SAP, or you can choose to edit your grade scheme, which also has impact on your SAP, but you aren't having to make as many configuration changes. And that's on GRSC. There's also a white paper on the Ellucian Hub on using the modify command on the SCS pass audit field. So that's something that you'd have to do at the database level, something that your IT department would have to manage. And of course, there's downstream implications of making any changes at the database level, so that would need to be strongly considered. That field allows the final grade to be changed from a letter grade when verified to the applicable pass-fail style grade. Those grades, if you choose not to make those type of modifications, can also be maintained individually. And then you can run RACT to automatically recalculate all of the GPA records for anybody that you chose to modify. Now, if you're making changes to your grade scheme, it's important to go to SPGR to update. That's what SAP uses when it's looking at your grade schemes. So you want to make sure it's pointing to a new one that you're using, or any translations that you want to take effect for SAP are thought through on those screens. Then, as we know in colleague, there's a million places to hide a rule. So there's academic standing rules that you need to review. Some of those can have GPAs identified within the rules themselves. That can also happen in the class level rules, but that's less common. You also have to think about your class rankings. If you are a school that uses class rankings through CRUP, there's rules on that you'll want to think about, because CRUP is based on GPA. You also want to think about your honor rules. As we mentioned on the earlier slide, if you do things like Dean's List or honors, you want to make sure that those rules are taking this semester into account. Then we're working with schools that are adding notes to the transcript for the semester or wanting to add a special block when they run Tran. Some schools are looking at creating a special custom batch process to go through and add it for every semester. That's currently happening. I'm encouraging everybody to start documenting now. We know it's going to be a rough audit season, so make sure that you have a withdrawal reason to indicate if someone is withdrawing because of COVID, or a hiatus reason if they're choosing to take a semester or semesters off. Any changes you make to withdrawal or hiatus reasons, you also want to make sure that you update your National Student Clearinghouse screens on SIPT. And that has implications for how it's translated on the National Student Clearinghouse side. We don't want to introduce problems into that process. You also want to take a look at your degree audit rules. So from a banner perspective, that's when we would be thinking about scribing on degree works. But in degree audit, we have rules that can look at the GPA specifically, and those we might want to change because of this semester. Then we talked about the scholarship implications. So you also want to look at your auto packaging subroutines if those are GPA specific. I'm going to hand it over to Carol for some banner specifics.
Yay. We get to move to 8-letter. Anyway, so within banner, as we all know, there's a lot of flexibility and configurability within the banner environment. And the approach would vary somewhat based on the policy and practice you're putting in place, as well as, in this particular case, the version of banner SSB that you're running. So I'm going to walk through this from the perspective of running banner SSB version 9. And I'm also going to walk through it from the perspective of giving the student the option to change their grade. To change the grading mode, not the grade, sorry. One of the things to consider there is the timing of the roll to academic history. So this can be done either before or after. There's just different configurations and different assumptions that need to be made. I would also, Kelly, we've gone a little bit too far. I would also say that on the prior screen, yeah, there we go, that I can't help but recommend completing really a comprehensive process flow that's based on your policy and practice and documenting that approach before you move into any reconfiguration. That usually goes without saying, but at this point in time, because of the complexity and because of the assumptions that need to be made about both versions and process, I think that's a very, very important consideration. So thanks, Kelly. We can go on to the next one. So this example that I'm going to walk through assumes that students are changing the grading mode through SSB 9 on the registration page, and that we are, for that purpose, reopening registration for a grade mode change only. Some of the specifics, and these specifics would apply however you're changing the grading mode, is obviously to update the grading mode validation table to allow web display of a grade mode for pass-fail, setting up substitute grade conversions on SHA-GRDS, updating courses on SCA-Course for multiple grade modes if those are not already enabled. And for some of you, that's going to be a hefty lift, so you might consider developing a custom script to do that upgrade. And then on SOA term, checking the change grade mode under the web processing controls to give students the option to do that. If you are using time ticketing, you'll need to make adjustments to open registration for that purpose on SFAR-GTC, and also you'll need to adjust dates of student access to SSB registration. Typically that's done through an RSTS rule, but there's also some functionality on GTVS stacks that can help you to control some of that through the stop_RSTS entry. The last piece is on the SSB side, and there may be more depending on how you're configured, but for this purpose, the last piece is to adjust the appropriate change opt-in grading options for web display. I'm not going to try to read the package name there. You can see that. And then in addition to the mechanics of setting this up to allow for this functionality, you also on banner side want to consider transcript comments if there's something relevant for that purpose on SHATCMT. You'll want to review your academic standing rules on the relevant form for that. Certainly you want to review your satisfactory academic progress rules, and this how those are configured will vary by institution, but those need certainly to be reviewed. And to Kelly's point, the more documentation that we can add to this process, for example, if a student does decide to withdraw or go on leave, making sure that that's reflected in the academic history. Also, again, to review all the degree audit rules, whether it's DegreeWorks or CAP or some other system that you're feeding to, you really want to make sure that those are adjusted appropriately to match this change. Finally, I think this is finally, one of the questions that came up on the Ellucian site as I was thinking about this was, can the grade mode change be accomplished without reopening registration? There are some schools concerned about reopening registration and other things happening, like adding classes or other activities. And if you want students to select, really, that you really do have to reopen the registration component to this to allow them to choose a different grade mode. But if you are not reopening registration because this is a more universal change, we could certainly, there are other ways to approach this, I guess is what I would say. And then the other question was, will grade mode changes be made before or after grades are rolled? That's really a question you need to examine. Wanted to let you know that if you want to allow students to see their grades through SSB before you have rolled them to academic history, there is a GTVS stacks entry called show unroll that can be set to allow them to see that grade, make the choice, and adjust the grade mode. That presumes that you're having faculty enter the letter grades and the students are making their decision based on that. Finally, we've just put together a brief list of resources for you. You may already have seen some of these, but they include, and this will be what you'll, in the materials that you'll receive after this, the ACRO guidance, the Ellucian COVID-19 community that's been set up to track much of this activity, NASFA components, and the Department of Education action on coronavirus. There are also, for those of you in IT, EDUCAUSE resources and others that certainly can provide a lot of guidance. But for this particular one, these are some of the resources that we found helpful. Wanted to make sure you knew about.
Now I understand we have a number of questions popping up in chat.
We do. I'm going to scroll back and do my best to moderate the question session here. So outside of the slides being available. Okay, so I think the first question was, will this increase SAP appeals? And Jack had asked that question. Jack, I don't know if there's any other context you wanted to add to that, if you take yourself off mute.
You hear me okay?
Yes.
There you go. Yep.
Great. So we actually started this process for pass-fail. I don't have anything loaded into test yet, but for us, our SAP is highly automated, and I probably have about 200 rules for SAP. Do you think this is so? I'm trying to gauge here because so our SAP appeals, we also have our SAP appeals process highly automated as well. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to look at what we're doing to make these to make the least amount of modifications possible.
Right, and are you planning on keeping your SAP automated for this semester? Or are you going to turn off the automation and evaluate manually this semester?
Well, that's kind of that's the $1 million question, because we have, with our rules, we can, you know, we can evaluate it, and I think we come up the people that are unsatisfactory and possibly siphon out those different types. But I'm at a loss right now. I'm not sure which way to go.
Right. And I think that SAP is especially sticky because if you change your rules, especially when you have 200 rules right now, and then next semester will hopefully next semester is more normalized, not this hopefully once in a lifetime situation that we're living right now. And then you'd have to possibly change all of those rules back. I would lean towards manually evaluating SAP, creating some reports so you can find those people that should legitimately be on SAP and evaluate that way, and especially with the size of your rule table.
So let me pick your brain. Let me pick your brain for a second. So if we run SAP, if we run SAP the way we do right now, actually if we run it in simulation, what we could do is possibly maybe run it automated in simulation.
Right.
All the people that, because for us, we're going to go with I'm not 100% sure of the schema yet, but it'll probably be a P and something else. And
Right.
what we could do is we can run SAP then in simulation possibly, and then all those people that come out on Satisfactory, we can pull them out and look at them specifically. So that way maybe we kind of go with
Do the best of both worlds, automate what you can and filter through who falls in simulation mode.
Yeah, because the problem for us is because we have everything tied, because I have colleague tied into self-service and we're dealing with campus logic. So
Right.
we have all these things which move the processes different ways. So it's going to be like not good if we can't keep it to a minimum of
Right.
updates.
Right, and you definitely don't want that pushing out to campus logic to all of the students that are already stressed.
Clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely, I think the simulation mode is an excellent idea, and it's going to limit your possibility of any rule issues. You can also query the rule table for GPA. That's something that you could do through an SLCR.
Yes.
So then at least you could see the ones that are possibly an issue. But yeah, I think looking at the ones that have dropped down through simulation is a great start.
One other quick question for you. I don't want to suck up all your time. Are you going to do anything like any type of possibly follow-up webinars, maybe for like the different sects, like colleague schools or banner school? Because I feel that you might just be kind of like scraping the top of the iceberg here.
I completely agree. We have a follow-up webinar that's scheduled for financial aid implications. And then we're also listening to all of our clients to see what's going to be most impactful for them, because we want to do the best we can, as Stephen mentioned in the beginning, to be a good partner and help out where we can. So definitely open to feedback on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. The next one is also a colleague question. Is there any reason to not use an asterisk on a grade? For example, having a normal P grade set up and then setting up P asterisk used for spring 2020, so they're easier to find when reviewing grade requirements.
So an asterisk is an acceptable character in a grade scheme. There is actually a document highlighting this on the Ellucian Hub in the COVID-19 section that was highlighted on the resources page. And that's what you highlighted is exactly why people are using that, so they're easier to find. And then they're entering a blank GPA in that example, so that it doesn't have a GPA impact and you can find it easily on your grade scheme. And that's an acceptable way. You just have to evaluate all of your rules to make sure that it's not going to have an impact there. So all of the current and future implications would still be impacted, but we all know from a Unidata SQL Oracle perspective that sometimes characters are problematic, but asterisk is okay in a grade scheme.
Okay. We have another colleague question, which is focusing on degree audit. They've set parameters in the major area that have a minimum grade of a C-. When I tested the student's program eval, the student who received a P grade in major courses appeared unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
The major course drops to the bottom of the page, and the other courses in the area, will Ellucian have a workaround for this? And that was from Regina. I don't know if there's any other context, Regina.
Yeah, so
that was it.
Oh, go ahead, Regina.
No, that was it. That was it in entirety.
Okay, perfect.
And that's exactly why we highlighted looking at your degree audit rules. You can change your syntax on those to allow for, since this is a strange situation, allow for that P grade. Or you could have an override in effect that also has downstream implications, because we know that sometimes overrides and exceptions can fall off with different changes to the program requirements. So we're recommending right now to review your degree audit rules and change them to include that P in addition to your above C qualification in the degree audit rule itself. And I can, Regina, if you'd like, I can send some syntax information for you too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next is a billing. Colleague, could this affect billing?
Yes, and it depends on the state you're working in and the system that you're working in. We've heard through some state systems that the refund tables are taking a big hit because some states are changing the refund rules. So at least from a colleague perspective, refund rules are very picky in registration tables. So those refund policies have to be set before the point of registration, and that's when they take effect. So we're seeing a lot of people having to override those existing refund policies based on state decisions or system decisions. From a straight billing, there shouldn't be an effect unless your registration tables, RGRT to TRTB, have rules that indicate grades. That's uncommon. I've been working with registration billing for a long time and haven't seen that before, but those are additional rules that should be evaluated just to make sure, but I would say that would be unusual. So I've seen the most impact in billing from a refunding perspective.
Okay. This one is colleague based, and it is also around recommendations to ensure repeats are calculated properly. Repeats, M. Fisher, do you want to?
Yeah, repeat.
Okay.
Just repeats, yeah.
And so you have maybe a repeat rule that's looking at if they achieved a grade higher than something, then they are able to repeat. Is that sort of the situation you're in?
No, this is M. Fisher. So at the end of the semester, ensuring that the S, for us, the S grade will be, students will earn an S if they earn a C- or better. Below a C- will get a U. But we want to make sure that the students that are repeating a course that previously had a D family grade benefit from the repeat, so that the D family grade is no longer calculating in their GPA.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and there's some rules that drive that process as well. And so your new grades that you're using, so are S and U new to the institution? Are they just something that's been like a fringe case use?
Yeah, we have them as part of the grade scheme, but they're only used for select courses. So we've never had a pass-fail option at the college.
Right. So you want to look at your rules and add in those grades so your D students can continue to operate the way that they have in the past. And I can send some, I don't think I included the retake screens in the presentation, so I can send that along or I can add to the presentation before we send it.
Yeah, it's not a retake issue for registration. It's really a GPA calculation at the end of the semester, so it's a repeat, not a retake issue that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I will, because that's on our POL, so I can I'll pop that in and send you an email on it as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any insights on excuse withdrawal? We are wanting to find a way to make our SAP read a reason code for our W grade status without adding a new grade code. Do you know if this is possible?
I know from a banner perspective, that's one I'd have to think about. I'm not sure if it's a banner or a question, but
it wasn't, let me see who, I can't see who sent that. Let's see. Reba, is there any context around your ERP and current situation?
I can say from a colleague perspective, we're working with the school right now adding an excused W as a grade option. They're dealing with the same situation that you are, and they needed to do that. We are researching some withdrawal reason implications within rules to see if that's an option as well.
Mhm.
Okay. And Reba, we can reach out to you directly. If I don't know if you had to jump, but okay. And we have a PeopleSoft question, which will probably, what suggestion can you give for PeopleSoft users? We are allowing students to see their grades first before deciding if they want to change to satisfactory, not satisfactory, or no credit. Is there a specific question that you have? Because we would probably need to get with our PeopleSoft resources and ask if there's something particular that you're looking for.
Well, yes. Is there delivered setup that you change? Is there delivered functionality that might need to be customized that you would recommend to go that way? Or is it a recommendation to do just a complete bolt-on customization to accomplish this?
Yeah, I think we'd need to reach out to PeopleSoft experts before we gave a decision. At least I don't have the comfort to be able to answer you that.
Okay.
Kelly, do you?
Thanks.
Yeah, we can definitely get that back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
No
you.
worries, and we'll reach out directly.
Okay.
Thanks, Anel. I see Sue here. I don't want to skip. I don't know if there's a question. I think Sue was just giving an update on what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have
Actually,
someone.
I wanted to know.
Perfect.
Hi, I wanted to know if you see any issues with this, and is it possible in colleague?
Oh, okay. So you want to tell us a little bit about your scenario, because we're reading through. So just if you could verbalize what you're trying to do and where you may be caught up or what you've run into as an issue.
Well, I guess I'm used to pass, no pass, and I'm not sure you can have pass, low pass, no pass in colleague. But we've always only used pass, no pass.
It's possible, because we could have a Z grade or a Q grade, but the system doesn't lock us in to that as much. The wrinkle is how you're going to calculate those. And so as long as there's no GPA implication, you're using it mostly as an indicator of where the student landed in the course. It can definitely be configured. I would just be worried about the downstream implications of any rules you'd want to build off of it. If that makes sense, Sue.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do to look at all those screens you listed, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sue. Esper, we're in the same boat as Reba. We are wanting to leave the grade of W, but needing to look at the new status. Reason to identify the student who withdrew due to COVID. DOE is allowing for those withdrawals to not be included in the SAP calcs. I'm a colleague user. Unfortunately, SAP is built on grades.
Mm-hmm. And so are you looking at creating a separate grade type outside of W?
We're just looking at options. We would like to not mess with our grades if at all possible because of the reasons you stated early on in the slides.
Mm-hmm.
So instead we were hoping that there was some sort of workaround that we could even pull off of a reason code or even a status differently, but not changing a grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was doing some work to see how I could pull the reason code into different types of rules around the system. So I think, if as long as that can be accomplished, how picky rules are and where they can all be used.
Yes.
So that's what I'm just testing in different areas. If you want to spend a little time together to work on an SAP rule, pulling off of that, we could definitely set that up.
Yeah, we would love to do that because we are actually not changing any other grades.
Okay.
So this is our only need.
That's your only exception.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Okay. Thank you. We have another question about repeats. This one says, we're allowing students to select sections that they want a P after they see their letter grade. Our IT team will mass modify the pass audit field for those students' sections. My question is about repeats. I was testing repeats. Student had a D. We currently use last grade and now receives a P for the retake. The transcript stack record shows a negative number, although the GPA looked correct. It's very confusing to students.
Hi, this is Nahara. That's my question. How are you?
Hi, Nahara. Good
So
morning.
basically, you know, the repeats, when I tested this, the attempted and the honor points come in as a negative, as negative credits on the term. I've looked extensively through Ellucian Okta and communities. At one point, Ellucian did say that that is expected. However, it can be confusing, and they had sort of like a workaround in Okta, but it said that it wasn't fully tested. So I just wanted to know if you had any insight on this.
And where, when you say it's confusing to students, where are they viewing that? Is that?
They're viewing it on their transcripts, on their transcript. And right now, because
They actually took my question for once.
So our students will be looking at their letter grade and then selecting section, what sections they want. So in order to make the correct decision, the best decision for the student, we're allowing them to use a GPA calculator and referring them to their transcript and saying, enter this, enter that, and these are the different scenarios. However, a negative would look, you know, would make it confusing to the student,
Right.
Extremely confusing. So I just wasn't sure if you had seen this or if anybody had any experience with the negative showing up.
That's one of the reasons people are starting to add those blocks as transcript notes into the transcript, whether through like STNT as a note. Some are adding it into comments in a badge program. Some are customizing their transcript subroutines just so it doesn't show up the negative, just so the students have, you know, just trying to help them out in any way they can. And we know that students don't always read. So in the phrasing of how to write that note so they see it and understand it has been challenging.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sorry, scrolled ahead here. When is the financial aid follow-up webinar? That is actually scheduled for April 23rd. Okay.
As well.
Yep. And then we had Debbie who was asking, what other characters are acceptable? We are already using CR asterisk. Would CR apostrophe work?
Quote. Single quotes are problematic, especially in SQL. So I would lean away, and I haven't done any testing of the single quote, but just from a syntax perspective, it's problematic in SQL as well as in some Unidata statements. So I would steer clear of that one. I can look to see, I can ask our team to see what other characters they can recommend outside of asterisk. And are you thinking instead of adding like a CRW or something like that?
Yeah, I think right now we only have 3 characters.
Okay.
But yeah, we could go to 3 characters. Most of ours are only 2, but.
That makes sense. Yeah, we're seeing all sorts of different stretches because of this.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. We'll follow up with some possible other options other than single quote. Irene, when you said change your degree audit rules except P or S grade, did you mean those grades to APRS or other grades fields?
Right, so there's the other grades fields on APRS. Some institutions within their degree audit syntax actually have, I think as mentioned in an earlier question, within that min grade syntax, the grades are actually buried within the actual rules themselves as well. So 2 possibilities there.
Okay. Debbie again actually was asking about degree audit as well. regarding the change to hierarchy and where the additional and other grades need to be included.
Yep. So I would check your rules to verify it's not buried in some min grade syntax. And there's ways of querying that, as I mentioned with Jack's question on SLCR. And then the other grades field on APRS.
Okay. Adam S. was asking, do you suggest editing the current grading scheme or creating a grading scheme?
So the testing implications of creating a grade scheme are more wide-reaching than editing the current grade scheme. So if you add a new grade scheme, then you'd have to make sure that that was included on SPGR for the SAP rules. You'd have to embed it into a lot more places, make sure that it was available when you're setting it up for faculty when grading online. So there's a lot more setup implications and testing implications. So that's why a lot of schools are leaning towards just editing the existing grade scheme to add the pass-fail options. That was something that we had a debate on internally as well.
Okay. Elizabeth Pyle?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So we're a colleague school and we're letting our students see their letter grade using our regular grading procedures and then decide whether they want to replace that with a CR or an NC. Mm-hmm. And we already use CR and NC in our current grading scheme with certain implications, such as in our degree audit saying that those are not allowable to count towards certain requirements because they have to have a letter grade for those requirements. So we want to have a CR, a new CR, and I can't envision how I can do that in the current grade scheme. So I was thinking about going to a special purpose grade scheme that just has those CR and NCs, and then changing stack records to the new grade scheme and the new grade after they've seen their letter grade and elected that they want that. So one question is it okay if the grade scheme in the stack record, the student's individual enrollment, is different than the grade scheme for the section? Because
and that is okay.
Okay. And second of all, just what do I do in my degree audit rules then to make this new CR in my new grade scheme allowable? Because those allowable grades, I'm not sure it will let you point towards multiple different grade schemes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Ick. And so that might be where you want to lean towards a CR asterisk, like someone else was leaning to in the comments above. I have to look. I did a syntax with something similar, so let me take a peek. But I do know that you can switch on stack the grade scheme for a student to not match a section. I've worked with a school that had undergrad and grad schemes that were different, and grad students were allowed to take the undergrad course for grad credit. So, and that has always worked out well for them. But I can take a peek at the degree audit pointing to a different grade scheme and how that syntax looks.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, and we had Stephanie with a banner question, allowing students to see the grade rule. Is there anything else that needs to be updated? I'm not even going to try. Carol, do you want to?
Other than GPX show and enroll? Yeah, I actually read that and I've been sitting here thinking about the answer to that. That's the rule that will allow it to display, but there's likely other configuration based on your system. So I'd like to follow up with you on that particular question and make sure we get the answer correct.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other context, Stephanie, that you wanted to add to that?
No, I was just watching, and while I was watching, I was trying to set it up and test, and I was not seeing it display. I didn't know if it displayed somewhere else in SSB, so I was just thinking if they knew anywhere else that I needed to configure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's SSB configuration, so but I'll talk with you offline because I think that it may be in some of the multiple grade modes and other things, but we can talk.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it looks like Mike Roberts is talking about considering covering grades, allowing normal letterings, but displaying pass-fail on the transcript with explanation. We've already customized the transcript routine, so it may be easier for us. And Mike, I don't know if what type of ERP do you have? What are you?
Sounds like a colleague question.
Okay.
I'm a coder at heart, Mike, so I totally see where you're coming from. I can just go into the subroutine, say if it's season A, then change it to P if it's this semester. The downstream implications of that would be your grade scheme is still going to have those GPA calcs. So you'd want to think through if it's truly a D, for example, do you want that GPA to have a negative impact on the student for this semester or not? So that's really the opposite side of that equation.
Okay. We had another question just pop in. Are there any efficient ways to change the course level prereqs to reflect the newly added P asterisk so that it doesn't impact future registration eligibility? I assume this will have to be done on a course by course basis, but I felt like it was worth asking, and that is a colleague question.
So there's the potential, Kelsey, for a modify command to be used to make that edit. You'd have to work very closely with IT, of course. I'm not sure what department you work in. And that would have to be, tested, of course, make sure that it doesn't have any effects that you weren't expecting. Just to avoid a course by course modification. I'm not aware of right now a batch screen to modify those in batch, but there's been a number of prereq software updates that have been released recently that I haven't stayed on top of. So I'll check with our experts to make sure there's not a batch program in existence today.
Okay. Banner question. I would like to know the answer to the banner question. Oh,
yep.
Yes, so we can share that with you as well, Linda. Carol, we should make sure that we're following up with Linda as well. All right, we've reached the end of the chat questions. Is there any other questions anyone's been holding that they just want to verbalize? Give a minute there. Okay. Well, we appreciate all the questions, and certainly we'll be following up with everyone. Thank you. So just wanted to talk a little bit. We do have the webinar coming up that we've referenced, which will talk about the new financial aid implications, and that'll be not next Thursday, but the following, and we will have 2 sessions of that. So please feel free. We will be sending out, as we did, direct correspondence on this, emails and our social media, but always you can visit our website and click on what's new. And if you have any additional questions and you wanted to have a little bit, I would say more direct conversation about this, we're always here. You can email us directly at info@Forelli or call the 888 number. And you will always get someone live. With that, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you all for joining. And like I said, we will certainly be sending this out, and we'll be following up with anyone who had additional questions. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and the rest of the week.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And if there's anything else you would like to see as far as a presentation, feel free to suggest it at info@Forelli.com.
Good call.